When I start something new where there might be a blurry picture for somebody else, it's crystal clear for me. Like, I'm really good on the sales side of it, and I'm really good at bringing people in, and I know exactly what to do.
Selling 30% of your company to somebody who's going to run it is aligning your interests.
To give you an idea, the same amount of cabins have been built up there from 21 to 25 and had been built from 30 to 21.
Wow.
What we've realized is, like, these guys don't speak that language. They're like, oh, you got something under $2,500 about this size?
Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm super excited today. We have Mark McDaniel. He's a serial entrepreneur. We met Mark actually showing him a property we had listed in Greensboro. Mark showed up. We were showing him the property. Then he just started talking about all the things he had going on. And I was like, man, you've got your hand in everything. So we've got to get you on the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on.
Man, thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So you were giving us a little bit of your background before we started, but for the people listening and who don't know you, give us kind of your background and how you ended up getting into commercial real estate.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys. We had a company. It was based out of Greensboro, North Carolina, mostly Carolinas-based company, IT company. I was a partner. We started in 2007. Kind of, we were green, and if you had to look back in time, you're like, that's probably the worst time to start a business, 2007 and 2008. But, we just didn't know any better. And I know how many hours are in a week because I worked almost all of them for 5 years. We sold that in 2015. Was able to take a breather for a little bit. Still worked for that company part-time, the company that bought us, private equity out of Texas at the time. And then I started investing in long-term real estate down in the Mississippi market. A lot of HUD-type housing. Looks great on a spreadsheet because the spreadsheet doesn't tell you that people aren't paying their rent. And so it's hard to collect their rent. Kind of got out of that and went in, looked at a lot of short-term rental markets across the country. I looked at Austin, Nashville, Charleston, and a lot of markets have a lot of rules around them. It's a little risky to kind of bet that much money when the tide could change in a hurry. So the two good markets that I ended up kind of looking at, taking seriously were like the Panhandle of Florida, because people have been renting down there since forever, and then the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And I looked at Tennessee laws and government and taxes, operational expenses, and it was just a better bet. And this is 2015, 2016. And so I kind of went all in on that market, bought a bunch of properties. I've turned a bunch of properties since then. Ended up starting a property management company off the backs of our own properties. And we recently just sold a third of that company to an entrepreneur, and he's gonna be managing it. But man, I've been all over the board, though. We not only do short-term rentals, but we've bought some car washes. In 2017, you guys are probably super well aware that the Tax and Jobs Act that Trump signed into law allowed us to take 100% bonus depreciation. And at the time, car washes, anything above the land, the concrete, the building, everything was 100% bonus depreciable. So as like my short-term rental might have been 30%, this was, like 80%. And so that was a good bet. Ended up buying 5 car washes, and I'm skipping around here. Nice. Now we're doing some industrial buildings. We've got the franchise rights for half of North Carolina for a restaurant concept. Yeah. So man, yeah, we're moving and shaking. It's a lot. Sometimes I feel like I take on more than I can handle, but it always works out.
I think that was one of the questions we were definitely going to ask was how are you able to manage and stay on top of all the things that you're doing?
Yeah. Man, the older I get, the more I learn just to embrace the way God made me. And so I think we can spend a lot of our time looking at other people and saying, man, I want to do that, or I want to be like that. But I found the more I find out about myself, the easier it gets. So what I found out is, like, I love starting stuff, like love it. And God didn't give me the risk bone that he may have given a lot of other people. And so when I start something new where there might be a blurry picture for somebody else, it's crystal clear for me. Now, when it comes to operating, after the thing's built and 3 months down the road, I don't love that. Like, that's not a muscle that I like flexing. Like, I can do it, but it's like swimming out to catch the wave. Whereas when I'm starting stuff, it's like I'm on the wave and I'm coming in. It's just easier for me. So I think to most people, they look at all the balls I have in the air, and sometimes it is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But man, like, I don't know if I'll probably do it the rest of my life. I mean, I might not do it at the scale I'm doing it now, but I might come back down to earth a little bit, but I just love doing it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that, like Jesse said, we've kind of wrestled with. We don't have nearly as much going on as you, but we've got brokerage, our brokerage business. We've got some industrial warehouses we purchased. We got the podcast. We were doing Airbnb. Jesse's got his glove business. We're also trying to build personal brands, social media stuff. So it's like all these different things. Plus, like I told you before filming, I have a young family. So that's something we've been trying to figure out, like how to manage it all. And it seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of very successful people, where you have partnerships, or you're really good at starting things, like you said. And I think you mentioned prior to recording, but you start something and then you pass it off to somebody who's a really good operator. And so there's like so much value in partnership. I feel like, do you want to speak to that a little bit, like the partners you've had in all these journeys?
Yeah. One of my gifts is that I'm good at connecting. So I'm good at connecting two people who I see have different gifts. I'm good at connecting them together, and I'm just good at like making connections. And so like this franchise, for instance, we own the franchise rights, so we can either develop the franchises or we can sell them to franchisees. Two ways to go about making money in this endeavor. I have a good friend who is a food safety guy, and he is incredible character, awesome guy. I trust him with a lot. And he introduced me to this operator who operated a Chick-fil-A, like the kitchen. And he's like, man, this guy is first-generation immigrant. He loves his family. He loves the restaurant business, and he loves operating restaurants. And I'm like, I like starting restaurants. I don't ever want to operate it. Like, I'll come in and be the hospitality guy, but I just don't ever want to operate it. And so I met Carlos, and I just fell in love with him because he just showed a passion for wanting to operate a restaurant and wanting to grow this business. Our property management company, we've been operating this company ourselves, and like I'm really good on the sales side of it, and I'm really good at bringing people in, and I know exactly what to do. It's just, I just don't like doing it. And so we set out to try to find a needle in a haystack, and we ended up finding a local guy who bought 30% of our company. So he's got a huge amount of skin in the game. He loves to do operations. He's going to be the general manager of the company. He's going to make a salary. And so now for me, I've started this company and it's going to grow. I mean, if you put a ton of money into a company, you would make sure it's going to grow. And so he's going to make sure it grows, and he's going to make it sure that it operates efficiently. And now I can be in the advisor role, which is what I'm best at.
I think the big takeaways there are he's got skin in the game, right? So like I know a lot of people in the commercial real estate world, they want to see from the GP side that, that you have skin in the game, that you actually want this deal to happen and grow, right? And you really know who you are. Like as a seasoned entrepreneur, like, you're that visionary type that, hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm best at. And then you hand off the stuff that you're not as good at, or stuff that you don't want to do. It takes away from like you and your family, right? Hand that off to someone who's even better than you at it. And that I think that's part of your success story, like why you've been able to get to where you are. For sure. I'm
reading the book "Am I Being Too Subtle" by Sam Zell. I don't know if you've read that or not, but Sam Zell is obviously like a commercial real estate titan, and he's talking a lot about alignment of interest. And so it's like selling 30% of your company to somebody who's going to run it is aligning your interests. So I think that's just something that's very important when you're working with other people in partnerships. It's if somebody's just on salary, they're not going to be bought into it like you are.
Charlie Munger said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. And Jack Welch, you guys know who Jack Welch is. He was the former CEO of General Electric, and he had this pay plan. And I learned this through, the guy's name's Brian Beers. He owns a ton of Meineke shops in Pennsylvania. And he kind of taught this to me, the incentive program that he used, and so we're implementing it. And so he pays his managers 20% of net income. And then everybody on the front line also gets paid some type of percentage of net income. And so he's like, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. And the stores it changes a whole culture.
100%.
Yeah. If your salary versus getting paid on net income and you're managing that P&L, then you're not throwing stuff away and you're being a good steward of those resources. And so
that's so good because like, especially in today's culture, like nobody wants to work, I feel like. And so, a lot of people say like the bar's really low right now. You can go out and start a business or whether it's sales or whatever you're doing, like you can go out and just start in something. And if you're putting in effort, like you're going to beat 90% of people anyways. But then you take it to that level. Like we went to a store yesterday and we pulled up and there was a sign on the door that said no staff. Closed. And it's crazy. And then we went to the next door and everybody in there was sitting on their phones, like all the employees and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's like if those people were bought into the company, then, that would change the culture, like you said. But
also talking about Brandon Turner, and like that's how he grew to the scale that he is, because he gave up, equity to his acquisition people. That was the first time that I'd really heard that explained at like a lower level, to where I really understood it. And I know you're in his mastermind. Yeah. So I know Graham.
That's something I definitely want to touch on later, but I don't want to jump too far ahead. Something I was going to ask, going back to talking about the Airbnbs and the company, you sold your IT company. If you were in your IT company and then you switched to real estate, that's one question I wanted to touch on. What was the decision like? Like, why did you choose to go into real estate?
Well, I didn't want to work. No, in all seriousness, like, the goal is passive income. Yeah. But what you find out is it's a misnomer. Unless you're an LP in a deal, a limited partner in a deal, being a passive investor is I think it's a misnomer. But I've kind of changed my whole being around work, because I think that we were made to work. Like I get this picture of like in ancient times of this kind of God with his hands in the dirt, like creating you and me. And then, so when it says, that we were created in the image of him, we're created to be creators. So that's why I think like when you're given a specific job, hey, you got to go in at 9, you got to get off at 5, and you got to do these 8 things, people get really burnt out. But if during that time you choose to go above and beyond and be really creative and do things kind of outside of the norm, go above and beyond, at the end of the day, you just have this sense of fulfillment. Have you ever noticed that in yourself? Like when you put in a good day's work and you do a lot of creation, at the end of the day, you're just like, man, that was a good day. And you just sleep a little better. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you leave a lot of things undone and you live a life of just resenting somebody who told you to do a bunch of things, you don't sleep as well, you don't have this sense of fulfillment, you tend to get depressed a little bit more. I just think retirement is this whole kind of weird thing that humans created, but work is like this is something that we should embrace. 100%. Because you can, and real estate is a real life, like see something coming out of the dirt into fruition, or something old made anew again. Like to me, it's just a real life picture of like, man, this is being creative. Yeah. I love it.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think me and Jesse are on the same page. Like, we love real estate more than anything. And I'm so thankful because, a lot of people, they do hate their job and they do go to 9 to 5 and they resent it. But like, sometimes I feel guilty talking to other people. I'm like so excited about what I'm doing. And I just genuinely love brokerage, love investing, love meeting people like you and, people we get to interact with on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, this is literally what God made me to do. And I just get so fired up doing it. So I'm so thankful. And then, but you talk to other people and they're like, you go to like a family event or like a dinner with a bunch of friends or something. And like half the time, all of them are like, yeah, man, I'm like, I'm taking next week off, but I have like 3 days that I can take off until I'm done for the year. And man, I got to go back into work tomorrow. People just don't like what they're doing. Yeah. But I couldn't agree with you more. It's like, if you're doing something you genuinely enjoy and if you're fortunate enough to be able to do something that, you feel like God made you to do, you don't really feel like you're working. Yeah. And also too, there's that stat. I can't remember what it is exactly, but like people after they retire, a lot of people after they retire die within a couple of years because they feel like they lose that sense of purpose and meaning. And that's scary. I don't think we're ever planning on retiring. Kind of one of the goals when we started this podcast was to document our journey. We had no commercial real estate. Now we have 2 buildings and then we're partnering in 4 more. So about 6. That was within a year or so. So we were able to make some decent progress, but the goal is never like to make a bunch of passive income and then retire. It's to, people say like be able to do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want. And it's like, really, for me, it's like work on the things I want to work on, which we're already kind of doing. But that's I agree with you 100%.
And it isn't always the end result. Like it's the journey to get there. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to a hotel where the guy valet parking the car is just crazy enthusiastic and loves being there? And you're like, man, I'm glad I met this guy. So, you can be in any endeavor and just find the good in it. And I think as real estate investors, we do look at the end game a lot. And so it always seems like it's the next thing, chasing the next thing. and then the next thing's never enough. So I think embracing the journey to get there, like, okay, this process with the city, like these 4 guys have been a real pain in my butt, but man, like I've had an opportunity to meet these people. They've got families at home, just kind of seeing them where they are and for where they are in life. And I just love that journey of kind of being around people. I think it's kind of our responsibility to take every opportunity like that to make it good.
100%. So another thing I wanted to touch on, going back to your original story. So you chose real estate, and then you went into long-term rentals in Alabama. And I think most of the people listening to the show, our audience is people who either want to get into commercial real estate or transitioning from residential to commercial. So we don't necessarily need to touch on that, but something that seems to come up all the time, and it's definitely a question to us, when somebody's first looking to get that passive income, they're trying to replace their income so they can go be in real estate full time. Airbnb is one of the first things they look at. Something we did. We still have an Airbnb. We're actually in the process of turning it into just a normal long-term rental because it's been such a pain. It's been lucrative, but it's a pain, as you know. So I'm curious, what got you into Airbnb? And then also, I got a couple questions. Well, what got you into Airbnb? Do you think it's a good place for somebody to start in real estate? And then also, I think it's crazy that you timed the market so well. 2016 to get into Gatlinburg and Florida. I mean, that's like you couldn't make that up. So is that something you recognized and saw, or was that more just like, you knew you wanted to get into it, you bought those deals, and then you found out after the fact, or is that something you knew?
Yeah, well, good question. I got in Airbnb because I just have a heart for hospitality, and I think it's a really cool place that you can be crazy creative in.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. And so I got in the Smokies, and it's not something that I had the foresight in, but I was kind of a novice investor at the time. I was a novice investor at the time, especially in the short-term rental market, but I was looking at it, and there were, if I were to pay cash for these homes, there was like a 20% cash, like a 20% net income. Like if I paid $1 million, this house was going to make $200,000 at the time. And so 2016, I don't know if you remember or not, but there was a big fire in the Smokies, and it wiped out like a ton of the inventory. And so if you were to be an investor in anywhere but where the area that got wiped out by the fire, that means you probably got around the same amount of demand with way less inventory. Now, 2020 happened up there, and construction just went through the roof. Like I was limping along around not really limping along. It was going well. 16, 17, 18. I was like, oh, it's getting incrementally better. The rental numbers are getting better. We're upgrading these houses so they don't look like they were built in the 30s and have bears and fox all over the cushions. And so we thought we were ahead of the game. We're like, oh, we're a little ahead of the design game. And then a friend of mine built like this super modern house with a golf simulator in it and indoor pool and indoor theater. And at the time, we were both thinking to ourselves, wow, we're really testing the market here. Like Gatlinburg has never experienced this type of rental. And for a 6-bedroom, he did over $300,000 like his first year. And so we're like, okay, there's a market here.
Yeah.
And so we kind of jumped all into these modern houses and started building modern houses with new looks and new furnishings. That kind of caught on, and now there are a ton of them.
Yeah.
And the demand has actually kind of switched a little bit back to like more traditional.
Yeah.
Because, if you have what we hit on was like there were very few of a specific type of house, and there was a demand for it, but because there were so few, we were being filled up. Once that inventory grew, to give you an idea, the same amount of cabins have been built up there from 21 to 25 than had been built from 30 to 21.
Wow.
Holy cow.
From 1930 to 2021, had the same inventory from 2021 to 2025. So I thought it would happen. I thought the cap rates would go low. I thought it would happen like over a 5 to 7 year period, but it happened in like a year or two. It happened really fast. And so we actually sold a decent amount on owner finance deals, because at the time, you guys may have heard of Pace Morby, but he was out pumping this subject too. So we sold some of our deals on sub-2 loans, and it's worked out pretty good, honestly.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many influencer type people I follow. Like you probably heard of like Rob Babasolo.
Mm-hmm.
Like I started following him a while back, and he was heavy into Gatlinburg. And then there's I think he has stuff in Gatlinburg and like Western North Carolina. Nick Melifante, I think is his name.
Mike Elefante.
Mike.
He's actually in my mastermind.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. I was trying to remember.
He actually used to work for our IT company when
No
he was
way.
in sales a long
No
time
way.
ago.
Wow.
He was
That's
in
awesome.
inside sales.
He does a lot of, like, he's all in short-term rentals, right?
Yeah.
Like he's all into it. Yeah, and he's big on social media, too.
he
That's
is.
cool.
Yeah. He played baseball at Elon. I think.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Small world.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a lot of management stuff, too.
Yeah, he's got a management company.
Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, you see I saw all those people talking about it. I'm like, it seems like maybe it's not getting oversaturated, but the competition is crazy now. It seems like
It's crazy. And
Yeah.
so the bar, because the competition is so high and there's so much more inventory, and the demand is actually drawn back a little bit from the peak in 23. So you've got to stand out that much more. So talk about passive income. Airbnb is anything but passive.
Yes.
It is very, very active. In fact, the IRS looks at it as an active business with a side of real estate, kind of like a car wash or operating a jet. Like it's kind of the same thing. So you got to be really good on pricing. You got to be really good on photos. You got to be really good on SEO. You got to be really good in a lot of facets, just like every other business in the world. It's I'm going to get a 12-month lease. I'm going to put it on Craigslist, get a 12-month lease, and I don't have to worry about it. It's not like that at all. It's day to day.
Yeah.
So given all that, do you think that is a good place to start, or do you think this boat's gone? It's sailed.
I wouldn't go into a city that you
There's a lot
feel
of
like
competition.
there's a lot of, I wouldn't go into a city where you feel like it could go away because Airbnbs cost more.
Yeah.
I mean, they just cost more. I still think Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge is a good market. And if you're going to be on it, like you're going to be all in on that rental and you're willing to build something that really stands out, you can do fine. But it's not where I'm hedging my bets in the future.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I'll say you can learn a lot.
I'd say we definitely have learned a lot, in our own Airbnb, and the good and the bad. We've had really good months and we've had really bad months, but really we can't complain. We have been able to pay, since we got the Airbnbs up and running, we haven't paid a mortgage, and that's huge, I think.
Yeah, and it's floated a lot of other
It's
endeavors.
Exactly,
like
yeah, like this podcast.
But
like
it's a
some of our
duplex in
brokerage
Durham,
stuff.
though, so it's not like a cabin in Pigeon Forge.
Right.
It's not the most
Yeah.
ideal short-term
Yeah.
rental place. We do get a lot of people from going to the hospital or going to like UNC or
Right.
coming for their kids'
Yeah.
graduation at Duke and stuff like that. So it's been well. It's just we're trying to focus on industrial commercial real estate now. But
Yeah.
you say that's not where you're hedging your bets. So I'm curious, where are you hedging your bets now?
It's there. We call them contractors' garages. I actually interviewed a guy, and there's not a lot like it around here. It's kind of big in the Midwest and Florida and New York, and I actually interviewed a guy out of New York who's doing it, who's taught me how to do it. And but it's multi-tenant, light industrial. We do 18-foot high ceilings, 14-foot garage door, a man door, temperature control, and a toilet. And so think of it like a co-working space for home services companies. Any kind of Orkin guy or the pool supply guy or the general contractor. Now they got a place to put all their tools, all their vans. We can put a mezzanine in the top of this thing and they can make it into an office. It'll have Wi-Fi. Like it's everything they need. These guys, they park their truck in the driveway, and if they're in an HOA, they can't have a logo truck in their driveway. They get their tools stolen out of their truck twice a year. They're operating out of a 250 square foot mini storage unit that is just a pain in the butt. Or they've been forced to lease for 10 years in a space that's too big for them. And so we're doing 1 to 3 year leases, just make it purpose built for these guys. And there is a massive demand. In fact, I've got 4 sites under contract, so I'm working with 4 different cities to do 4 sites right now. I think we've already raised the money to close on all of them as soon as we get them through the process. And I put out a Facebook Marketplace ad. This is what this guy taught me to do. I just basically said in word form, in written form, what I just told you, and I put up 4 or 5 pictures of what it might look like. I got like 250 inquiries in 2 weeks.
And one of them was me. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't.
I saw it on
Like,
Facebook after we had met at the Greensboro office, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, Mark has
It must be Mark.
Small Bay Flex too," because I saw that it was you, and I messaged you about it. Because it's so funny you say that, because City Plat, I think we mentioned to you before, that's what they're all bought into as well. they're not developing them, but they're buying them.
Yeah.
So like we bought one in Raleigh, we bought one in Charlotte, and right now they're actually forming a fund to go out and buy these like at mass scale. Like so not just one little building like parks. So we're going after these small bay flex parks. Jesse found one. Don't say the location, obviously, but how many buildings was it?
It's 10 buildings across multiple different parcels, and it's kind of incredible. It's
one owner.
Yeah, it's all one owner. Yeah. We actually have found a couple parks. I found a couple of them, and they either acquired them from a long time ago and they've been in the family a while, or they developed them themselves as well, kind of like you're doing, and are just at a place where they're kind of done with it. And so fingers crossed we get that. But
so we understand, like we're all in on
sure.
that too. It's such a good market.
It's the opposite of Airbnb. Like it's a metal building. It's a long lease.
Yep.
It's a business to business lease. It's not a, I mean, if they don't pay rent, like that's their whole business. Like, and so for them, you know, we kind of went into it. We're like, okay, we're going to do $1.40 a square foot or plus CAM. And what we've realized is like these guys don't speak that language. They're like, oh, you got something under $2,500 about this size? Like, and so you just start speaking the language of the folks that you're catering to, and so that's kind of what we're doing. And it's way easier than short-term rentals. And the returns, I mean, from a development standpoint, I mean, if you've ever developed anything, like sometimes you can look at a piece of land and you have this awesome vision and you're like, that's going to take 3 years. I'm not going to make any money for 3 years, and I'm only going to be out of pocket. So it takes a certain personality to want to develop. You know, you got to have a lot of patience, and you got to have, you know, some dry powder.
Yeah.
The way you guys doing it, you might pay a little bit more, but you have instant cash flow, which is nice.
So are you buying any existing stuff or only developing?
So we're only developing those 4 sites, but we're looking at another site that is like, man, it's like 140,000 square feet. I should talk to you guys about it because it is a really, they used to manufacture carriages back there in like a long time ago. And it's but we're looking at it to rehab it and maybe make jumbo storage into some of it, contractors' garages into some of it, maybe at least 20,000 square foot out. The folks who have it now had this vision to do that, and they got rid of all the asbestos and all the contaminants, but they didn't want multiple tenants. They kind of wanted one tenant for all of it, and so they're selling it now. Anyway, we're looking at maybe picking it up.
That's cool. Have you seen these like luxury garage concepts? I've seen them getting more popular. I haven't done anything with them, but I'm just curious. It's basically the same thing, but instead of just blank, you know, they make them like really nice, and people store their like exotic cars.
Some people hang out. Some people hang out in them. Like
man
that's their, like
caves and stuff like
you can
that.
epoxy the floor.
Yeah.
Have you done anything like that?
I haven't done anything. There's a local guy here. He owns this concept called Car Caves.
I think I've seen him. Yeah. Does he have a location in Charlotte by chance?
Maybe.
Okay. Because I had a client of mine text me like his website or something, and he just goes, "Hey, what is this?" It's like I had to like explain it to him.
They sell them individually
out?
for like $350. I mean, I've seen them as high as like $800K for 1,600 square feet.
Jeez.
If they're outfitted. Super nice, but I mean,
it's a cool concept. It'd be cool one day to have like a podcast studio in there, have a couple cars.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of that space you showed me, that garage you showed me downtown on Church Court.
Yeah.
I
think it's sick.
That'd be cool.
Not quite the same, but
one question I had, he mentioned it earlier. We've had a couple people on this show. Do you know a guy named Josiah Smelser? Smelser, right? Yeah. That's his last name. I don't know if that's pronunciation. But anyways, he's all in on short-term rentals, kind of similar. We had him on the podcast. He had a bunch of properties in, I believe, Texas and I think Alabama too. Sold them, 1031'd them into Gatlinburg cabins and stuff. But anyways, he was on Brandon Turner's podcast, and then we had another guy on the podcast named Slava. Do you know Slava by chance?
I don't know.
Okay, no worries. I'm not sure if he was in his group or not, but he lives on Maui. And knows Brandon and goes hiking with him and stuff. But anyways, we've heard a lot of people at Brandon Turner. Everybody knows about Brandon Turner.
Yeah.
You know, I got to start listening to Bigger Pockets. Got inspired by Brandon Turner. So
Brandon's,
you're in his mastermind.
And he's just a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
You can tell. Truly. I mean, just by listening to the podcast and stuff, you can tell he's just a solid dude. So you're in his mastermind. You're in his like exclusive mastermind. So talk to us about that and kind of the value you've gotten from that.
Yeah, I mean, coincidentally, I'm wearing the shirt. The mastermind is called the 50. By the way, remind me to talk to you guys about the wedding venue we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
It's the ultimate short-term rental. Yeah, it's called the 50. So there's 50 of us from around the country. I would say 50% of the folks are syndicators. The other ones are maybe developers. Like there's even a guy who owns an island, and they launch SpaceX missions off of it. That's a crazy real estate endeavor. But yeah, man, it's really cool. Any like guys from developers out on Maui to, short-term rentals out of Tennessee to you name the type of real estate, these guys are kind of all in. And the cool thing is, like, nobody has an ego, and everybody knows that they can learn from somebody else. That's why you pay a lot of money to join something like this. And the cool thing is, Brandon, and he's got a gentleman kind of running it for him. His name's Matt Francois. Unbelievable guy, incredible guy. He's like concierge extraordinaire. But he arranges, like, every time we meet, there's a new kind of personality we meet. Like in Arizona, Ken McElroy was there, and and what was cool, like I was, this was really fascinating. This is a cool story about Ken McElroy. So we had Ken talked to us for about an hour, and then we had these breakout groups, and then we would go around the table and discuss, some of the issues that we were having in our business. And one of the things I brought up is one of the things we've talked about today. Like I've got entrepreneurial ADD, and so I like to start stuff. And what I realized about myself, like, is I'm probably gonna keep doing that despite what Ken told me. But Ken had a really cool illustration. He's like, I was in New York, and there's this guy named Arthur Levitt, and Arthur Levitt's family created Levittown. He's like, I'm in this room with Donald Trump and Arthur Levitt, and it's me. He's like, there's a lot of other people, and Levittown was created years ago, and then Arthur kind of left for a long time, and he came back, and he's sitting in this room, and Trump's like, Arthur, what happened to you? He's like, I lost my momentum. And so he had left and got mixed up in a lot of things that people don't want to be mixed up in, and he came back, and his point was, like, once you get good at something, it's way easier the second time, way easier the third time, and you get this momentum. It's kind of like if you've ever read Good to Great, the flywheel effect. So getting the flywheel started, and I think this is true for like 99% of the people. For me, getting the flywheel started might be my favorite thing.
Yeah.
But getting the flywheel started is really, really hard. But after you get it started, it starts going, and then it gets going faster. It also can be like, the flywheel of doom. Like if you get a negative thing started, then it can kind of. Yeah. But even my pastor, like he's kind of created his own flywheel. But to give you an example of a flywheel, like at the top of the flywheel, like let's just say it's Netflix. At the top of the flywheel, we're going to create great content. If we create great content, we're going to get subscribers. If we get subscribers, we get money. If we get money, we can create more great content. Where a lot of entrepreneurs go wrong, once they get money, they're like, oh, I'm going to take some back now, and I'm not going to reinvest that. And so Ken's point was around momentum, like once you get money, then you can make that flywheel go faster, because it's going to, on this second rotation, it's going to be more money. The third rotation, it's going to be more money. And so I kind of went back home, and I was like, man, maybe I should really consider just consolidating down and only doing like one or two things. But I mean, yeah, I could make more money, but I wouldn't have near as much fun. Yeah. Like I just love starting new stuff. And so I think I'll always do it. Yeah. I mean, I just, first of all, I don't want money to be my end goal. I do have money goals, but it's not my ultimate goal.
Yeah. I think Sam Zell said it pretty good. He said, what we're doing in our work is our passion, and what we do and what we love for fun, and money is kind of like the way of keeping score. Not saying that like, we have to win the game and all the score stuff. He was just saying that he's worked for, set like however many years he was in real estate and stuff, and all the different things that he started and grew and did, and it was more about that. It was more about the grind and the challenge of doing all those things, and he had a score of the money, but it wasn't about that, right? Yeah. And I think even he said something along the lines of, you can let the career win a lot of times, and that's not always the right answer. And it's a little bit about that work-life balance too. Not that it's a balance, we're always doing like what we're passionate about, but you can't get lost in the career either.
Yeah, money's kind of a byproduct of adding an incredible amount of value to the world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But if you're only in it for the money and you're trying to create as little value for as much money, then that's going to catch up with you.
People see it too.
But if you like that's part of going back to what we were talking about earlier, just being creative and doing good work. Yeah. If you're doing good work and adding a lot of value to the world, the money it'll be fine.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a great point too. There's a lot of successful entrepreneurs that I follow, like Dan Martell.
Yeah, Martell came to one of our masterminds.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. He talks about like, you can like focus on your I can't remember what it's called. I think production quadrant. And it's like, yes, that is the thing that ideally is going to make you a lot of money, but it's also stuff you enjoy, which is huge. And you're actually one of the first people who's kind of told us that, and I think it's a really good and interesting perspective to have because like City Plat, for example, they're cutting out all these other assets and going just after small bay industrial, and they like that and they enjoy it, so that's good. Yeah. We were wrestling. Do we get rid of this Airbnb and turn it to a long-term rental? Do we just sell it because it's residential and focus on this commercial stuff? But it's not just it's not just black and white of let's just focus on commercial real estate. It's like, what do we enjoy, or what do the people listening enjoy? What do you want to do? It's not just cutting everything out to do one thing. It's like, if you're doing 10 things and you really like it, you can keep doing that. And if you've been successful in it, and you don't have to just stop. And I think that's a great point that we haven't heard really, honestly.
Yeah, we really haven't on this podcast. Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like, because you said you said it perfectly. I can make more. Sure, I can make more money.
Yeah.
But that's not the end goal. The end goal is to do what I want to do and be passionate.
Yeah, man. If I see both of you guys as dollar bills, we don't have a relationship. And I would say you ask about the mastermind. There's a lot of Brandon Turner fanboys. But if you see Brandon for who he is, like he's an introvert. You never know that. He loves God. Most people probably do know that. He's a great dad. He's an incredible teacher. He's very inspiring. And you just kind of see him for who he is and embrace that. He's got a lot of great qualities that people want to follow. He's a good leader.
Yeah.
And so there's no, it's not a mystery why the mastermind's successful and why he's able to get great guests to talk to us.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. So that's something you touched on a lot, and something we want to do. We're both believers, and we want to make sure that what we're doing is ultimately the ultimate goal is to serve God and to serve other people. And it's awesome when it can line up with things you're really excited about, and also if you think that's what God created you to do, which I think it is, and we're in the right spot at the right time because that's God's plan. But how do you incorporate your faith in your work, and how's it made a difference in what you've done?
Man, thank you for asking that. Yeah. I was hoping we would go there. I think most of us, there's a lot that can be said about this, first of all. And some people go through their whole lives and they don't know who they are. And I think the only way to really know who you are is by having a deeper relationship with Him. Because then you realize that that's where your identity is. And that's, and then you're able to not chase after somebody else who's worldly and chase after Him. And He shows you, He reveals who you really are. And so I think a lot of times I used to think of work, all right, so I've got my work box, I've got my family box, I've got this box and this box. But now I've kind of tried to incorporate more like women are naturally. Like I feel like I'm just a big bowl of spaghetti now, and everything just kind of weaves together. I kind of think of it like a big pie. And so most people think of the pie as like, okay, I've got my God piece, I've got my work piece, I've got this piece. But now I kind of, if the listeners can visualize this, put a big circle right in the middle of the pie that all the other pieces connect to, and that's God. I want every single facet of my life. And I do bad things every day. And so I'm trying to get better every day. But you know what? It doesn't feel like a burden. Like I think if my pastor said it best, like being saved is the pool, it's not the diving board. Like we often think as Christians, oh man, so now I've gotten here, now I'm going to go do this thing and this thing and this thing. I think you should only want to do good things out of a heart of gratitude, because then the burden doesn't feel heavy. If you're trying to carry it yourself, out of the purpose of just doing good things, I'm a do-gooder, and I'm out trying to earn my way to whatever it is, it feels like that yoke is really heavy. But He says my yoke is light. And so if I am just so grateful for what I've been given, and I do positive things in my life, and I add value to the world out of a sense of gratitude, then that becomes easy.
I'm really glad you said that. a lot of people try to be perfect, and that in itself is a massive burden to carry, and we do not have to be perfect because we're never going to get there. But we can be 1% better each day trying to get closer to Christ, right? I have seen in my life, and I want to share this just because I feel like a lot of people have an identity crisis, and they try to make everything about, in their life about the goals, about money, or whatever it is, right? Whatever distraction that the devil and the flesh try to put on you. That's one of the Four Voices, which is a really good book if you haven't read it, Four Voices. Talking about the things that kind of distract us, and then we need to focus on the one voice, which is the Spirit, right? And a lot of people try to focus on all those things that get you distracted, but if we focus on God and the Spirit, everything else is going to fall into place, right? Like, He's the ultimate provider. As long as we work hard, God's going to bless us. Like, I don't have any doubt in that at all. So if
whether that's monetarily or not,
right.
It might not be. You might
Yeah,
not
it might
be
not be.
monetarily blessed.
And his economy.
Yeah.
His economy is, we can't wrap our minds around his economy. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in his economy. 1 + 1 sometimes equals 102. And so it's about, there's a good book, it's God and Money, I think, but it's like, it shouldn't be about how much should I give. It should be about how much should I keep. We should totally change the tide. And so when I think his economy works that same way with time. Like, when I wake up and say, oh man, I've got these 30 things to do today, I better hurry up and start. I'll bypass my quiet time. I better hurry up and start. But if I decide to waste time with God, then all these other things just seem to, like, it just takes care of itself. You can't explain it on a spreadsheet. I can't explain it to you unless you've actually experienced it. It doesn't make sense until you know Him, until you go through that.
And I think if our identity is in Christ, then all those other distractions, like all the stuff that we stress ourselves with, it kind of goes away. Like, even if I can take care of the birds, like, I can take care of you. Like, there's a lot of that stuff in the Bible too that I really like.
No, I think that's a great point, because I feel like as people who are entrepreneurial, like I am, Jesse, as you are obviously, and a lot of people listening are, it's so easy to compare yourself to other people who are, maybe way ahead of you in the journey, or even like, you see these young people who are 20 years old crushing or whatever, and you're like, oh man, I'm
way behind
or whatever. But if you have that kind of mentality, you're rooted, and you just know, okay, well, I'm where God wants me to be, and God loves me regardless of what happens. I don't have to do anything else ever. I don't have to, build a $10 million portfolio. I don't have to do anything.
That's so freeing, man.
Yeah,
That's so freeing.
It makes you feel so. I mean, but it's not like it's perfect, and I think that all the time, because every day you have to remind yourself.
It's not easy.
You'll get distracted and be like thinking about all these things and get in your head, man, I'm behind, and I got all this stuff going on. I'm so stressed out. But then you just remember, like, oh yeah, like, I don't have to worry. I'm good. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the best things.
I think my daughters and I have been to this ranch out in Northern California. It's called JH Ranch. It's a Christian camp, and I went there thinking, man, this is going to be so good for my daughter. And I came back thinking, man, that was so good for me. And one of the things is there's a guy named Mac, and he leads some of the talks, and he's like, entrepreneurs have like this faith muscle that they have to flex a lot. And he's like, I found a lot of really godly entrepreneurs because they know what it's like to have peaks and valleys in their life, and they know what it's like to go through those periods with God. And God just kind of flattens everything out. Like, hey, my hope is not in this peak, but my despair is not in this valley. My hope is right here. And so, it's I think faith is a muscle you have to flex. The more time you spend with Him, the more you know about Him, and the more you know His character. And after a long time, I think you feel like, hey, I can just walk in the garden with God today. He's my friend. And I think entrepreneurism is a little bit like that. Like, it's a muscle you have to flex. And so a lot of it is, I think the world would tell you, a lot of it is I'm betting on myself. But I kind of think of it like I'm betting on the gifts that God gave me, and they're solid.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I'm trying to think. We touched on a bunch of different things. Do you have any?
Yeah, a lot of things. I wanted to go back to like the franchising thing as a business owner. That really piques my interest, like how you kind of came across that, and how you're kind of moving in that space.
Yeah. So we've got a gentleman in Tennessee who owns about 850 Subway franchises, and we manage his cabins for him. Awesome guy. Incredible guy. And I met him through other awesome people who said he's an awesome guy. And C.S. Lewis has this saying where he's like, when you meet somebody and you say, no way, you two, it's kind of like your instant friends. And there's some people in your life that you just meet and you're like, no way, you two. And that's how he and I are. When I first met him, I'm like, Bob, like he's like in his mid 60s. I'm in my late 40s. So we're not on the same, like, you know, we have totally different life experiences, but we have a kindred spirit. He bought 20%, about 17%. His group bought about 17% of this franchise based out of the D.C. area. And the name of it is Hangry Joe's. It's a Nashville hot chicken concept. The guy who created it actually created Sweet Frogs before, sold it, and then he launched this brand during COVID, which is, you know, I love that. Yeah. I love that he had the guts to just start something new, especially in the restaurant business when everybody was told don't go out to eat. And then he brought Bob in and Bob's group to start developing standard operating procedures. But Bob told me when we met, he's like, man, this is going to seem out of left field, but I think you'd be great at helping me grow this brand. And I was like, well, I don't even know what that means, but I like and trust you, Bob. And so he kind of told me, you know, so I bought the franchise rights. This happened in like a week. It's just how I make decisions. And so I bought the franchise rights. And so I'll make, there's a franchise fee that every franchisee pays. It's like 6.5% within our franchise. And so I will recruit, develop, train all these new franchisees. And for that, I get 2% of their revenue forever. And so we'll develop a lot of our own. Probably we consider developing groups of 4 because once you hit like $1 million of EBITDA, you sell at a different multiple. We've considered developing some and keeping them. We're really open-handed about that. You know, you don't really make bargaining chips or make deals with God, but like I always say, God, I'm going to sprint through this door and I'm going to keep sprinting until one closes, and then I'll sprint through another door. And so that seems to have worked out so far. And so I'm open-handed about how we handle the end result here, but that's kind of how we got into it.
Yeah. That's super interesting. I think it's really cool how God can put other people in your life to get you to your next step and what you're working on next. Like I had no idea that when I was getting out of the military that I would, you know, jump into commercial real estate. Really, just by kind of happenstance, I just kept replying to stuff on Graham's social media as he was posting it, and we wound up buying a duplex together, and that's kind of like how we got started. And we were friends in college. He was, 2, maybe 3 grades ahead of me?
Yeah, a couple of years old.
Yeah, a couple of grades.
Like, we knew each other, but not well.
It was very passive, and it was Instagram that kind of kept us connected a little bit.
That's cool.
I kind of made the decision out of kind of left field. It felt right. I was like, you know, actually it would be kind of cool to do real estate when I got out of the military, because I was hoping that the gloves would be enough to live on, and it really wasn't because I had to take a break with a deployment. But I don't know, it was just kind of cool how that just kind of was almost placed for me.
But I do think if you go through life like, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm only going to do this. Like I made up my mind. And I think some people are built that way. Like my daughter came out of the womb singing and dancing, and she's known that she wants to do that for the rest of her life, and she might do that. I don't know. But I'm not like that. And so I'm really open-handed with what God puts in my way. If I walk out of this door and I meet somebody, I just don't think there's coincidence.
100%, yeah. No.
I just don't believe in that. Like I believe in divine appointments, and
yeah.
So I mean, I want to embrace that. I want to embrace the world that God has kind of put in front of me. Yeah. And it just makes it, I just love this idea of this journey of God and I, like me sitting shotgun in the car with God, and just like, hey, let's just whatever street he takes me down, we're going to find a way. Yeah. It might not be fun, but I don't think we were ever promised happiness or fun. We're promised fulfillment and joy. Yeah. If we embrace him. So that's kind of where I am.
That's where that identity in Christ comes from too. Like I was going back to my original point really, but what you're saying about being in the shotgun seat is kind of like how I feel, and like being a faith-based entrepreneur, like you can just kind of sit back a little bit. It's a lot more freeing in my opinion. Yeah. It's not easy all the time, obviously, as we say, but I think it's freeing for me. I have that outlook, honestly, because I can trust him.
Yeah, what you're talking about is just like, basically just submitting to God's will. You feel like he's calling you in a direction. It's like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's
Do
very freeing.
you have any reason not to trust him?
Yeah.
I've got no reason not to trust him.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. This has been phenomenal.
Yes, it has.
You want to talk about the wedding venue right quick?
Oh,
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I bring it up because for selfish purposes, but I kind of see this. It's in the Smokies.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it to me.
And the Smoky Mountains is the second most popular wedding destination in the country, next to Las Vegas. And so tons of people, it's a destination wedding. And it's really hard to do. It's commercial development. Like any other commercial development, really, really hard to do. Harder to do than any type of industrial because it's way more detailed, more architecture fees, sound ordinance type stuff. Way more design oriented. Like, I might pay $15K for an architect for a metal building, but I'm paying $120K for an architect for this thing. And so it's just way different. But I mean, we're so excited about it. Like, we're going to build a chapel, then the great hall, and our pro forma. I mean, most wedding destinations, like if you were to get married here in Greensboro and Raleigh, most of the time they're going to reserve maybe Thursday, but probably Friday, Saturdays, they're going to book up, maybe Sundays. There, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we looked at our competition, and one of the venues was doing like 280 days a year. We're talking about it's not cheap to rent these facilities, way more than a short-term rental. We're going to do it for 12 hours. So we have short-term rental cabins up there. We don't want cabins on the property because we don't want somebody waking up when somebody else is coming on. So we're doing a 12-hour rental. I'm like, this is the best short-term rental in the business. And so right now we should be breaking ground, we hope, by June or July. So we're kind of right in the middle of getting it financed. The cost balloon, like we went into this saying this is going to be a $4 million project. We're at like $8 million now, but we think the revenue is going to be close to $2 million. So, I mean, that's pretty good.
That's
wild.
Yeah.
So we're super pumped about that. But again, like that, we hired an operator. We hired a company to operate it. They're the largest catering company in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they do an incredible job. Just one of the owners of that, we hear him on the phone with brides, like we just kind of listen to him, and he just paints this beautiful picture. Like, you're going to come in, you're going to get a flute of champagne, we're going to make a special drink for you for the day. Like, he's so good at that and so good at hospitality and so good at that. And we're like, man, these people are going to be good. So we're partnered with them to do all the management. So to us, like that was one thing that I came back from this marriage retreat that my wife and I had. It was called Scott River Lodge in Northern California. It's a sister property to J.H. Ranch. And I was like, I want there to be something like that in North Carolina, like where married couples can go and they can kind of renew their relationship and meet people where they are, and everybody just worships God for a week. How cool is that? And I set out to I'm going to try to find a piece of property and we're going to try to develop something like this. And it kind of evolved into this wedding venue idea. And I was telling my partner on this deal who lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, he's a civil engineer. I was telling him about this. And he's never partnered with anybody on anything. He's an engineer. He likes to do things a certain way. And he's a great guy. But I was at his house one night and told him about it. And he called me 2 months later. He's like, hey, I was thinking about your wedding venue idea. Do you think you would want to partner on something like that? And it was crazy, guys. Like, the minute I said yes, within a week, we found the perfect piece of land. Flat, massive mountain view. It could only work for a wedding venue because it's 11 acres and 80% of it's in a floodplain. So if you try to develop the whole thing, it wouldn't work. But if you try to develop this part and then just, have parking and, outdoor wedding space, it was perfect. And it still is. And so so we prayed together. We're like, God, if you open this door, we're going to run through it. And that's what we've done. And he continues to open doors. Anyway.
No, that's so cool. And where did you do that? Is that in North Carolina? Or?
The venue's in Tennessee. Okay. So it's in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee where the short-term rental properties are. Okay. Yeah, it's a big destination wedding place.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a whole other, like you said, that's
a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing, yeah. That's
totally different than anything else we're doing.
We definitely never talked to anybody that's doing that, so that is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But I was telling Ken McElroy that about the wedding venue. He's like, man, that's something that very few people are good at. If you get good at that, you could do it near every national park. You could do it throughout the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's like these destination wedding spots throughout the world. So,
That's cool.
and that's a super creative endeavor. I mean, that's
100%.
like you can go crazy.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's interesting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
That's it.
no. There's so many cool things we talked about. So much value in that. I feel like
Tons.
if people want to connect with you and reach out to you and talk to you about any of this stuff, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can go to staysimply.com, STAYSIMPLI. I'm also on Facebook, or you can just, I forget my Twitter handle, but y'all can put it in the show notes. I'll get it to you.
Yeah. We got
Do
you.
that. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Mark. This
Yeah.
has been awesome.
Man, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
really
guys.
Yes,
appreciate it.
thanks.
Cool. And thanks for
Goodness.
listening, everybody.
Yeah.